I'm getting close to that inside corner here on the right side of my pineapple. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to clip the inside of that pineapple just about 1/8 of an inch. You don't want to clip all the way down to your 1/4 inch seam. You want to leave yourself a few threads that you can use for turning under. But I did go ahead and clip about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to start turning under to make that transition from my current position to that inside point. And so I'm going to continue taking some stitches here on the outside curve, getting closer and closer to that inside point. And I'll also show you an outside point and how I do that. So I'm getting closer here to that inside point. I'm continuing to take stitches. And as I get closer, I'm going to roll under that seam allowance and smooth it out with my needle. And so here I am getting really close to it. And notice how much I use my thumb here to keep this in position. It also, I think, helps keep the fabric from fraying. So now that I've gotten really close, I'm going to make the transition from the rounded edge to the inside point, and I'm going to roll this seam right here and use my needle. I've heard this called a window washer, but that puts those frayed threads down below your seam allowance. And again, I'm using my thumb to hold everything in place. And as I get closer to that point, I'm going to take some stitches that are closer together. They're going to be closer together than 1/8 of an inch because I don't want anything fraying or coming apart here. And this is where, if you're using thread that matches the background, you tend to see it more for some reason. So here I'm taking, I would say, about 3 stitches really close together. And that has held my inside point. And now I'm going to continue and go to the outside point. So I'm going to roll this under. And continue making my stitches about 1/8 of an inch apart. I'm going to turn this a bit so it's a little bit easier for me to do. And I'm going to roll that seam allowance and continue making my stitches. And so you can see how the concentration of thread here shows up in a contrasting color. That's why I prefer to use a matching color. Now, as you get closer to your outside point, you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to continue rolling your seam allowance under, or turning it under with your needle, using your thumb to hold everything in place. And I'm going to continue and roll the entire seam allowance under. And as I get closer to the edge of the fabric, I'm going to take my stitches and make my very last stitch 1/4 inch away from the fabric, from that fabric edge. Now this is my last stitch. I'll pull the needle through the fabric, and then I'm going to take another stitch in exactly the same place, and this is going to be my point. So I take another stitch, and as I put the needle through the fabric and pull it out, I'm going to put my needle through that thread loop and make a knot, which will make this point super secure. On the fabric here for just a second, and I'm going to clip this excess seam allowance right here. We don't need that, it's just going to be extra bulk. So I've clipped it out of the way. I'm going to discard that, And then I'm going to use my needle to turn that seam allowance under. I'm going to take another stitch right here, right at the tip. And then I'm going to turn my project so I can see my upcoming edge. And I'm going to roll this seam allowance under, starting from the tip. Now it is tempting to roll from the outside edge to the tip, but I don't recommend that because you're going to end up with too much bulk at that turning point. And so we'll continue on to the next inside point. I'm continuing to roll under here, and at times it looks pretty awkward, like you're not going to be able to get it, but you just need to have faith and keep rolling with that and turning with that needle. It's amazing how smooth you can get these curves and how sharp you can get your points. Now it doesn't take long to go from an outside point to an inside point on these pineapple leaves. So we'll be getting there pretty quickly. And if you notice, the leaves on the stems of the pineapple echo the same shapes in the pineapple leaves themselves. They're the same curve and almost the same size, so they should be easier for you to do since you've already done the pineapple leaves. Now again, I'm going to come here and clip just about 1/8 of an inch in. I don't have to clip a lot, just a little bit. And I'm using my eye as a guide. And I'm continuing to turn under. Sometimes it takes me a time or two to find the right place to come in. That's okay. This is not definitely, hand applique is definitely not about speed. I did my project when I was on vacation. I was at the beach with my family, and here I'm going to roll under this inside point. I'm going to turn it under, and at night when we were all tired from bike riding and playing in the waves at the beach and being at our family reunion, we would all come together at night and sit around and chat, and this is what I did. I did my applique. And it was nice because I could sit and talk with everyone, and I didn't have to be at a sewing machine, but I could also get some progress done on my applique. So here I'm going to take tinier stitches, tiny, 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 to reinforce that point so it doesn't fray. Here you can see where that thread color is really concentrated. And then I'll continue and do the outside curve and point just like I showed you on this one. But this should give you a good idea of how to do the hand applique with the outside curve, the inside point, and an outside point. And then once you're done, you can take out your basting. And you've got a nice rounded pineapple with points on the inside and points on the outside.